So who knows? How is this different from what we've been doing? Check. Right, you have now mixed in decimals and fractions. Let's write that out. When you have to rank and order fractions and decimals, you have to decide whether you want everything to be in fraction format or decimal format. You can't mix and match when you try to order and compare. I'll show it to you both ways, and then you can decide whether you want them all decimals or all fractions. In my opinion, I think you should know 3/10 as a decimal by heart. Okay? There are lists of fractions, which you'll probably get not this week but next week, that I think every sixth grader should know without having to do long division. 3/10, Hunt.
30. Decimal. 30.
0.30. I'm going to put it right above it. What if I went the other way? What if I were to take 0.25 and change it to a decimal? Sorry, to a fraction. What would it be out of 100 first? Marcus? 25 out of 100, right? Now, you do run into a little bit of an issue because you still have 25 hundredths and 3/10. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Let's just take it piece by piece. First, going back to the second bullet point here, is that you have to change either the fractions to decimals or decimals to fractions. I'm just going to write it out. Caught up. I think the easier way to do it is to change fractions to decimals, because if you do that, you don't have an extra step. Because sometimes if you choose to change a decimal to a fraction, then you might have to change the fraction to also get a common denominator in order to compare. I'll show it to you in example 2, but if you guys know fractions to decimals really, really well, I would do that. I just think it's easier. So, keeping it as a decimal, you tell me now which is greater, 0.3 or 0.25. Anybody want to come up to the board and put the little alligator jaws? Viv, you got it. Come on up. I'm putting the decimal equivalent here just so as it's a reminder. Correct. You're right back to what you did in lesson 4, comparing your digits in place value columns. And 3 is going to be greater than 2. Okay, so method 1 is just change everything to decimals if you're really good with decimals. The other way that you can do it, and it's a different problem, but now you have one where they're all fractions, right? Read it quietly to yourself so you can get the feel for the gist of what they're asking. Just curious, how many of you know 2/5 as a decimal? Because this is going to be on the list when you get that list of ones that you should know by heart. Do you know what it is? And that's a good job. It's 0.4. I just want you to see it first, and then I'll show it to you how to do it using fractions. 1/2 you should definitely know. That is 0.5. The one that's a little bit more difficult is 9/20. It would not be on your list, but I know some of you can do it because you just have a good feel for fractions and changing them to decimals. Kurt? Yes and no. Where's the decimal go?
Oh,
0.45 is right. All right. Keep that in mind, but I will show it to you using fractions. If you choose to make them and use and rank them in terms of fractions or keep them fractions, you have to come up with a common denominator, preferably the lowest common denominator. Do you remember back in Mod 2 we did LCM for the holidays? Least common multiple.
Yeah.
Basically what that is, it's asking you out of the numbers 5, 2, and 20, what's the smallest number that all three go into? They kind of give it to you already.
20.
20. That's the lowest number that 20 can go into. Obviously, it only goes once. Oh, that's my constant. 2 goes into 20 how many times? Okay, remember we did this in ratios? 5 into 20 goes how many times? Now what happens is when you have a common denominator, we can compare the numbers by their numerators. What's the most, 8, 10, or 9? 10, right? And who is that? Rachel drank the most. Out of the remaining 2, what's lower? She drank the least. Okay? Look back at your decimals. Let me see if it still works. Is Rachel the highest decimal? Is 0.5 higher than 0.4 and 0.45? So it checks. Is 0.4 Myra the lowest?
Yes.
Absolutely, because remember this is 0.40. So it works. Okay? So we kind of already did that by changing them to decimals. I kind of went ahead because then that's kind of method 2. 0.4, 0.5, and 0.45. And you still get Rachel as the most, and you still get Myra as the least. All right, now next question. What if you get a fraction like 2/7? Hold on. All right, I'm sorry. If you get a fraction like 2/7, what should you do if you need to change it to a decimal? Who remembers? It's kind of on this week's review sheet also. My question is 2/7 as a decimal? How do you do it? Forget about making an equivalent fraction right now. Assume that you have to make it a decimal. What's the method for changing any fraction into a decimal?
D into N.
D into N. Take the 2/7. Who's in the house? Who's out the house? Who's out? How quickly we forget. Jack, who's out? Correct, 7 is out. Puts 2 in, but what do I also have to do if you can remember? Cat. Raise the rock. You might need 2 zeros. You don't know yet. I'll get to that thought in 1 minute. 7 into 2 can't go. 7 into 20. 2, right? 3 is too much. Let's just make believe that 2/7 represents a new person, and we'll call her Hannah. Hannah drank 2/7 water. Was it a water question? Now my question is, are we done?
No.
How many say yes? How many say no? Work smarter, not harder.
Wait, what? Smarter.
Work smarter, not harder. If the question's asking you, who drank the least amount of water? And who drank the most? And don't forget, we still have Rachel, Myra, and who's the other guy? Who was it?
Stephanie.
Stephanie, with 4 girls. Work smarter, not harder.
Oh, Hannah drank the least. Yeah.
How do you know Hannah drank the least?
0.4. already. Yeah, and
Work smarter, not harder. If the question's asking you who drank the least and who drank the most, we have the information that we already need by the 10th digit. It's not asking you to find the answer, correct? I don't care what 2 sevens goes out to. Normally I would say I would agree with you. We're not done. We got to go to termination, right? Bring down another 0 and go through it. But look, if all they're asking you is to rank them from least to greatest, as long as there's no ties at the 10th spot, which there isn't, look back again. We have a 0.4, we have a 0.5, we have a 0.45, but we also have a 0.2. So automatically, who drank the least amount of water? Hannah. Who drank the most amount of water? Still Rachel. We don't need to go to termination when you're doing ordering and comparing. Now, if for whatever reason we got a 0.5 or a 0.4 here, yeah, you got to keep going because you're not sure. But work smarter, not harder. Oh, wait, the question's asking me to rank it or figure out who's most, who's greater, who's less. If this first digit gives you the answer that you need, you're done. Work smarter, not harder. Okay? All right, so last example. Mixed numbers and improper fractions. Fine there, we got 4.82. However, what kind of fraction is this? Improper. So we have to do two things. First, we have to change an improper into a mixed number. Then what? Then what? Because you're still not done. Okay, Luke.
you have to change either the fraction to a decimal or the decimal to a fraction and then compare them.
Well, let's assume we want to keep everything decimals. What do you have to do to the mixed number after in order to do that? You got to change your mixed number to what?
Decimal.
Got it. All right, who remembers what's 24/5 as a mixed number? Got to call into your skills from Mod 2, if you could recall. Zode. What is it? Good. 4/5 will be in your fraction families for numbers or fractions that you should know by heart as decimals. So the whole number just becomes 4 point something. What's 4/5? Cody. Okay, so now who's taller? 4.82 or 4.80? I'm going to add that NX 0 in there just so you can compare. Who's taller? Ronnie's taller. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys, because I know we have a double period. I still need to teach you day 2, but I'm going to allow you guys in your groups to work the next 2 pages, actually. It's a page and a half. It's 4 and the top of 5. Don't do day 2, example 1. Okay? If you work quickly, don't work quickly. Work it accurately. I have place value charts up here if you need it. And no, you don't have to be done by the bell, but I would say 15 minutes is probably a reasonable amount of time to finish. So group up and go.